I've been a bit bereft today. I dropped my phone in the toilet. I cried and laughed, screamed out. And then I've realized today how much I look at the phone. Today. Oh, such a long day. It's been great in a way, dreadful. Keep reaching to my pocket for your best friend, connected to the whole world. Not today. So the lesson for today is, do not use your phone in the toilet, especially when flushing the toilet. Do not have it in your flushing hand. So didn't you realize that you tuned in for that sort of practical gem, that pearl of wisdom? But there we are. So the poor guy at the shop, I didn't tell him. He opens it up. It's full of water. I didn't have the heart to tell him not just water. Oh dear. So I'm not sure whether it could be saved or not. So it did, but it's funny because it felt dreadful. It really did feel, oh my God, it's a terrible thing that's happened. But it's just a phone. I just get another phone, don't I? It's really, it's very obvious that today. And in so many ways, life is better without it. Life is much better without a lot of things that self says, that I say, that I really need, that I couldn't live without. And then today there was just this, immense empty space where looking at my phone would normally be. And I didn't know what to do with it. I don't think I did anything with it, actually. There was just this great empty space where looking at my phone would normally be, checking how many likes I've got on Facebook. You don't need a self for that, by the way. You still like getting likes on Facebook. You still like whatever you like. It's just not your likes. So it did cross my mind today not to get another phone. But then, that's not going to happen. I don't think. And I thought how lucky, there was a lot of gratitude. With the loss of the phone, I realized how grateful I was for the phone, for this connection with all of you, with all these beautiful people all over the world. And I don't want to get too sentimental about it, because I don't even feel it is sentimental. It's just a wonder. It's just incredible. It's beyond incredible that here we are in different continents and we're just sitting together. And just sitting together is as good as it gets. It just doesn't get, I mean, it's good sitting on your own, it's fine. But sitting together is still on your own, but together. And I realized that's why it was so wonderful going to actual meetings, just to sit together. You don't have to say anything. It's nice if you drink coffee or beer, but just sitting together is as good as it gets. And it's amazing that you don't actually have to speak to each other to share it, to share life. Even though life is completely alone, that's the great paradox. Sharing it is still wonderful. So if my phone is completely screwed, which I think it probably is, then I will get a new one. It's really hard to describe the aloneness. Because I was always afraid of that. And yet there's absolutely nothing to fear in this aloneness. There's sadness in it, but not fear. It's not frightening because it's all there is. There's nothing to fear in it. I think I'm telling anecdotes today. So on the way over today, I picked up a hitchhiker. Can't remember the last time I picked up a hitchhiker. It's been a long time. But he was walking along a river, and it was just, I don't know, I didn't even think. Stopped and picked him up. He was batshit crazy. It was brilliant. And in the picking him up, I thought it was just, he had me laughing hysterically within a minute. He didn't stop talking the whole journey. I didn't say anything other than laugh. I had his whole life story, his criminal record history, his psychiatric history, his traveling history, his family history, everything. It was brilliant. Again, I just thought, wow, isn't life just incredible? And life is incredible, don't get me wrong, the rest of life is incredible and wonderful. But by far the most wonderful are human beings. And the stories we have to tell. Even though they're empty, they're just incredible and wonderful. They're all the more wonderful for not meaning anything. As everything is. Got accused of being nihilistic again this week. It's an occupational hazard. And I thought, I don't think they couldn't get further away from nihilism. Right, that's quite a short introduction, but I haven't got much to say today, apart from tell you stories. So does anybody want to share anything? Share a story or ask me something?
Michael has his hand up.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Tim. I listened to Ellen's story in an interview with on the Nothing interviews, and it felt like riding a horse through a new world. It was a merging of memories and an appreciation of another person's story, a whole world that we get a tiny glimpse of.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, yeah. Yeah, it is, because there's no escape from this world. You can't know another's world, that's for sure. But yeah, that's what's beautiful. You realize that stories, although they are empty of significance and meaning, how wonderful are they?
Mm.
Or dreadful. But
And our story,
that's wonderful as well.
our own story is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's because there's so much in non-duality to talk about, that the story is the problem. Well, the story isn't the problem at all. There isn't anything but, really. there is just the lovely stories. And even just, the story that we're telling in non-duality talks, just the story of this, just another beautiful story. Or a stupid story, as most people would think, a nonsensical story, rather than one that made sense and had practical value and was worth speaking about. Most see this story as ridiculous. But of course, if you get a taste of this story, you can't escape from it. It's like, oh, I want some more of that. But it is only more of the story. There's no more of this. This isn't, you don't get more or less of whatever we're referring to.
Couldn't you say that we are our story?
We
Or
could,
that
we could say, but I don't know whether, you know, we are stories, definitely. Whether I am my story, yeah, that doesn't quite fit, really. It doesn't feel like I am my story, no. But what else do I have to offer other than story? Nothing. No, there's nothing else on offer other than story, that's for sure. But there isn't anything other than the story, Michael. I'm guessing, so I'll concede you that. I can't say that we are our stories, but there isn't anything, there isn't anything, because really what I want to say is that, you know, we're empty, but of course we're full of the story. Yeah. Well, and everything else that we've called ourselves. So the emotions and feelings, you know, I think that's mostly what we are.
emotions and feelings are also stories about reactions in the brain
Yeah,
that are labeled.
I think they're only a story when we speak about them or when we think about them. Don't ask me what they are without that, though, because of course I won't be able to tell that. The thing is, whatever we are that can't be verbalized, that can't be told, whatever is not in the story that can't be communicated, then of course there is nothing to say about that.
Is there anything beyond our ability to objectify for us?
Not that you could know. That's how it feels anyway. Yeah. So yeah, the answer is no, there isn't anything. But that's kind of what that's what I'm trying to communicate, that empty, for me, the best word is emptiness. Just can't be communicated. Empty doesn't do it any sort of justice.
How does emptiness overflowing sound to you?
Quite nice. Yeah, well, I listened to Tony for years, and of course Tony's favorite phrase is empty fullness, and that's lovely. That's what Tony's always called it, this empty fullness. So I try not to say it too much, because everyone says I'm just a parrot then. and if you speak about this, you get accused of being a parrot a lot anyway. And if I use his exact terms, but that takes some beating, really. Empty fullness takes some, you know, that's about as good as we're going to get in words, I guess. Because of course that's completely inclusive then, and that's really all we're trying to do in words, is say there isn't anything out, there isn't any more or less, there isn't anything to come, there isn't anything that's been. Everything is and isn't. Everything's fully present and fully absent. Everything is absolute and completely relative. All those are just attempts to use words to neutralize each other. And then, you know, if you use paradoxical terms, they cancel each other out, and the mind might be stilled by those, and then there just is what there is, which of course there is anyway. Doesn't matter whether you still the mind or not.
I love what you said about paradoxes canceling each other out. For some reason, I find that unspeakably delightful.
I do as well. Yeah, I did from the word go. As soon as I heard, as soon as I heard someone speaking completely paradoxically, I was hooked. I didn't even know why, but there was such a delight in that. And now it seems obvious it's the delight in there not being a correct way of speaking. That this can't be pinned down. Life won't be boxed. It won't be like whatever labels you give it, the opposite label equally applies, is beautiful.
And yet that's just another story.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, all of it. There's great freedom in the obviousness that it's all storytelling, all the way down. You don't get through it's the end of the seeking, what's behind the storytelling. Really, you could say that's what most seekers are seeking. So I've heard stories, but what I don't want stories, thank you. I want the truth. I want reality. I don't want these, just stories. I want to really know. And the one, again, paradoxically, the end of seeking is that it's all stories. All the way down to the bottom, and there isn't a bottom. You can keep going down and all you're getting is, more story. But that's the rest. That's where the peace lies in that. All right, it's just all stories. There's the peace. There isn't actually anything to find. When it becomes obvious that there's nothing to find, and that, of course, you can't find nothing because it's nothing, there isn't anything to find, then there's just the joy of telling stories, knowing that they're nothing, they don't have any significance, and so there's no getting it right. You don't worry. That's the most liberating aspect, really, that you no longer worry about getting the words right. Just another story. Some people like your stories. Some people find them tedious. Others irritating. Some whatever. It doesn't matter. And then speaking about these great matters that supposedly we're talking about, the great matters of life, enlightenment, self-realization, the things that, throughout history, they're like the pinnacle of human achievement. And you realize they're no achievement at all. And then they're as light as a feather. There's nothing to achieve. No one ever achieved anything. But they can tell a story about it. And that's what we've got. And then you can find everyone's story, whether they're a crook or a saint, then they've got an interesting story to tell. And that's it.
Eva has a hand up.
Eva.
Yeah, hi, Tim.
Hi, Eva, I'm looking for you. Oh,
Uh,
there you are.
Yeah. Just the question of this me then. I
I'm
mean,
struggling to hear you, Eva.
okay, I mean, I probably have to speak up. Can you hear me now?
A bit better.
Okay, I'll just yell. It has to do with the me. Is there a story for the me? Is there a place for the me? It always seems like the me over the last weeks I've been thinking is like some kind of malfunction of what the brain or what as human beings we developed, and it's
Right.
a dis-ease. It's the as if the human development went down a wrong turn and the me has become kind of a disease. And perhaps that's just the me enjoying itself being something, then I'm a disease. But even objectively, if you just take a look at it, it doesn't fit in anywhere. It doesn't fit in the story. It just owns a story and makes it a problem where it could just be, like you say, a wonderful story of dilemmas and tragedies and whatever, without having to make it into this huge dis-ease all the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, we can tell stories about, the evolution of me and whether it's a problem or what. It just seems obvious that for most human beings, they live with a deeply held belief in their sense of self, that they're inside. And of course, there is a, if I'm telling a story, then even in evolutionary terms, then self's quite useful, because what it does is make you very self-centered and look out for yourself. Creates a lot of fear. Fear is the number one strategy that self uses to try to keep itself safe. So if I was being an anthropologist, which I'm definitely not, then I would tell a story of how those human beings who developed a sense of identity as themselves, they were better at survival. So it's not by surprise, it's not surprising then that human beings all developed a sense of self. That's very simple evolution. Not that means anything. So in terms of survival, because really I don't know what benefit we're thinking that no self has, other than here the biggest one is so much less fear. That's why I think that's why I speak about it. So there's natural fears, but neurotic fear for me. And it's neurotic fear that really what we call suffering. It's what most human beings suffer from. Anxiety, neuroses. So is that a problem? Well, I guess if you looked at how many human beings were taking Prozac, or how many human beings are in the West where it's available are in therapy, then yeah, I guess you could say self is a problem as a story. I don't think there's any doubt in that, is there, really? There wouldn't be many people disagree with you on that. But they wouldn't say that self is a story. They would say a dysfunctional self, and a mentally ill self. Not that the self's the problem. Of course, that's almost impossible for self to acknowledge, let alone recognize. But none of it's really a problem either. But it is for me, you know, for individual human beings, of course, it is a problem. Yeah. And if problems are mine, then the problem's much worse than just being a problem. I really don't mind problems, but I do mind my problems. I mean, if I'm listening to you and you tell me your problems, then I'll listen attentively and show compassion. But probably 10 minutes after we've finished speaking, they're not my problems, so they're gone. My problems, on the other hand, they're live and kicking and need sorting out. So that's the nature of self, isn't it? So this isn't talking about the end of problems, it's talking just about the end of my problems. But the problems still exist, seemingly. But who is it that gives weight to problems? I mean, my problems are a matter of life and death, aren't they?
Mats has his hand up if you've finished, and then Jackie, I see your hand after Mats. So Mats.
Hi, Mats.
Hello, Tim and everybody. So first, I just would like for your permission to share a YouTube clip for people to look at later, not now, but they can, anyone. It's called the non-dual dual.
Is this your photographs?
No. This is just a YouTube clip which is very funny about two people misusing non-dual language to piss on each other. And with your permission, I will put it in the chat so people can look at it later. Not now, of course, but
yeah,
later.
Sure.
I will. Okay, and then I have also a question. We were speaking, you know, with the Bulgarian people Wednesday, and I took with me 3 key words, and I would like to see if we can continue speaking a little. The key words were escapism, feelings, or not being afraid of feelings, we could say, and vulnerability. Those came up as the important, to me, what I took with me. So, and of course, these are things continuously relevant for me, at least.
Right.
Part of me wants to escape, you know, misusing, you know, this kind of talk to become invulnerable in a you know, kind of castle. And it feels good when you're able to believe in it for some time until it crashes down. And then obviously this is something to do about uncomfortable feelings and maybe being afraid of them, at least avoiding them. And then maybe the opposite of this castle is covered by the word vulnerability.
Yeah.
That is what it's. So now I'm speaking, but this was meant as a question. So would you comment on this?
I think you've just answered it.
Yeah, okay.
I think you've talked around the answer.
I must learn to shut up and listen.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. There aren't any answers. Yeah, I think what you're referring to is that one of the things that self finds most threatening is emotions, is very strong feelings, and feels that they will overwhelm me, that I won't be able to cope with this feeling. You know, and that can be any feelings, but particularly the ones that we say are negative emotions or negative feelings, like sorrow and grief, especially the feeling of loss, but also anger. Anger is particularly for most children, when they're being socialized and conditioned, they're taught that anger is dangerous. And so anger becomes very creates a lot of fear. And so you try and avoid it. And so anger is buried, hidden. The body has a natural intelligence and it holds it. So it holds that anger. It holds it as resentment, as bitterness. And then it, surprise, surprise, it emerges inappropriately, just when you least expect it, because it wants to be felt and it wants to be heard. It wants to be seen. You know, I mean, I don't mean that in a literal sense that it has intelligence, just to be expressed, really. And so any emotions that aren't expressed, they're repressed, and self is the instrument of repression, so that I fit in, so that I don't upset others, so that I'm acceptable, so that I don't show people the bits of me that I'm ashamed of, that I am actually, I do have hatred, I do have anger, I do have, well, you don't have, but they're absolutely natural human reactions that we try and, they make me feel very vulnerable. They make me feel very afraid. So I deny them. And really what I'd like to say is that emotion is nothing to fear. Fear is nothing to fear. Anger is nothing to fear. But that's not what we were taught. And what small children, what small cells, embryonic cells do, is they take those, what we were taught by our parents, what we were conditioned to believe, we take that as they're the words of God. You know, the adults are God when we're children. There's no doubt about that. You could say they're the only gods we have are the adults we had as children. And then we carry them into adult life as adult children. And we carry those voices and we call that God. And we're afraid. So we're afraid when we're angry. We're afraid when we're sad. And when sorrow is absolutely just love. There's no doubt that sorrow is love. What else would it be? And even really bizarrely, anger is love too. How good do you feel? I mean, don't get me wrong, you feel the guilt, but how good does the body feel after anger has been expressed? The catharsis in anger is just delicious, isn't it? It so is. We don't talk about it because, you know, it's to be denied, it's to be avoided, it's just, well, it'll upset people. They won't like it. Yeah, but they'll get over it. It's fine. All emotion is love. It's the love of being human. You know, emotion is the most, it's the best we've got again. It's as good as we've got as human beings, isn't it? And really, we've got these names for these different emotions and these different feelings, but they don't really say what they are, do they? They're just beautiful expressions of being human. Don't get me wrong, some are ugly expressions, but none of them are wrong. Some are more dangerous than others, seemingly, you know. And by dangerous, I just mean others won't like them. There's no danger to you. There's no danger in feeling and expressing emotion. But that's not what self says. I say, especially with sorrow. And I like sorrow more than the word sadness, because sorrow seems, you know, it's got a depth, it's a deeper, I don't know, it just felt, it's more, Sadness is too tame. Life is sorrow. And sorrow and joy are not two. You know, they're just beautiful expressions of being human and the love of being human. And yet we just run from sorrow. We run from, this hurts too much. Well, that's because it's love.
Can we do a little massage on the word vulnerability too? I was
Yeah.
thinking now, is it connected to courage maybe also in some way?
Well, the thing is, there is no courage in it. It requires no courage at all. Because if I was suggesting that it was courageous, then, you know, I'd be giving you some exercises about how you could turn and face your vulnerability and look anger and fear in the face and, you know, bathe in your sorrow. But that's not what I'm speaking about. I'm saying emotions are just as they are. And if there's, and the fear that self has about that this will overwhelm me. If I started crying, I remember saying this to myself, if I really let the floodgates open, then the tears will never stop. You know, that's a scare story from me. And it would kill me. You know, sorrow could kill me, fear could kill me, anger could kill me. Really not at all. There's nothing to kill. It's just life wanting to express this incredible human condition. None of it's yours. We run and hide from it. Because I am afraid to be vulnerable, Matt. That's the essence of self. I fear vulnerability. My vulnerability. And paradoxically, without that guarded illusion of a protective layer I've called myself, that I'm keeping emotion out, I'm keeping myself safe, the complete vulnerability, in that complete vulnerability of no protection, there's no vulnerability. There's really nothing that needs protecting. I know. Who taught us that? No one taught us that. All we got taught was you really have to be very, very careful. You look after yourself. And for goodness sake, stop crying because it's upsetting your mother. I'm teasing, but how many of us heard that? Or something very similar? And we didn't hear it once or twice.
And really, what they were bothered about was what everyone else would think.
Oh, just look what an awful parent I look with my pitiful sobbing boy. Stop crying, be a man. Yeah.
Very well expressed, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Was it? Brilliant.
Scott has his hand up.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. Hi, Tim. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I love this talk about vulnerability. because we're basically afraid that all these emotions that we've kind of put in the back, in the garage, are going to overwhelm us. They're just going to sweep us away. And the great irony is that holding those make us, this idea that we're invulnerable, make us so vulnerable. We're always getting picked off by anybody who raises their voice at us, or, you know, anytime anger or sadness walks in the room, you know, we freeze because we haven't been there. We try to change the subject, or oh, it's no big deal. And yet we're like a ping pong ball, or pinball. You know, we're really at the mercy of the world, and that's why we're constantly strategizing on how to avoid those minefields.
True.
And when we let the thing just come at, you know, we take it right in the, you know, all right, give me your best shot, you know, and then it's over, and then you realize the vulnerability was that you couldn't handle it. That was the real vulnerability.
Yeah, well, that's
but that you can handle it is the great secret. Of course you can handle it.
The lie, the great lie that self tells is this: I won't be able to handle this.
Well, that's how he stays in business.
That is it. That is his business.
He's just constantly saying we can end run these emotions. We can get to the finish line without having to go through the sadness and the anger. Just trust me. Trust me on this one thing.
He's got another business too, Scott. And the other business is helping you sort out those emotions so you can control them better.
Yeah, the idea we control emotions.
That's good business as well for self.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what, you know, the conclusion is thinking that you're invulnerable makes you so vulnerable. It really is the bamboo that bends.
Such a great paradox that without the protection that the illusion of protection that self says it gives the human being, that it gives me, that I give me by looking after me, that all of that creates the vulnerability.
And of course, you can't blame anybody at the end. You just have to laugh.
Not at all.
We do it to ourselves, and I think we all have to.
It's absolutely innocent. Yeah, it's all innocent. Yeah, and there's something really beautiful in that.
I agree. It was sweet, and even the homecoming is sweet. You know, because there was no bad blood. There was no bad motives in it, and you could see other people are in the same position. We're all in. You know.
Well, that's the wonder that all of humanity is in the same boat. Yeah, really, they're in the same boat without a boat. It's not even sailing on the ocean, and it's got no passengers in it. It's a funny old boat, really, that we're in.
Maybe it's in a dried up lake.
It's a strange boat that we're in.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Scott. That's nice. Hi, Ellen. Just unmute yourself. Ellen, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. No, the thought when you both were saying that, the thought that came to me was, we're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
Yeah, nice phrase. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Oh, we so are. But then it is wonderful because there isn't anyone exempt. You know, there's no exemptions. You can't buy your way. So can I buy a paddle? No, sorry, there's no paddles for you. Well, yeah, but I'm really clever. Can't I work out how to make a paddle at least? No, there's no paddling. Well, what about can't I get myself a different boat? No, just the shit creek. That's it.
It's absolutely packed.
Yeah. And then wonder of wonders, Shit Creek turns out to be beautiful. How bizarre. Shit's not as bad as it, you know, it was made out to be.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah, because shit happens and it doesn't even really happen. Does look like it does, but
No one.
not really. But yeah. Well, there you go. That's what that's just the sort of story that I tells to itself about, well, you go carry on down this line, Sonny Jim, you'll end up shit creek without a paddle. But again, no one told you that that was the place that you actually wanted to be. That was where all the good stuff was going down, up shit creek. Not down, you know, Rosy Stream or whatever we're calling the nice one, where you hope to be.
Scott's hand's up, but I think it's because I forgot to put it down. Is that right, Scott?
No, I just wanted to pop in with
Oh yeah, go.
a funny Zen story, if I may.
Here we go. We're on the Zen. Is it about Shit Creek?
No, but it's in that area. So this young kid wants to learn about the meaning of life, and they tell him there's a sadhu or a saint, you know, on this mountain. So he goes across the forest and swims the river and hikes the mountain. He gets to the top, and he says to the teacher, "I'd like to learn from you." And the teacher says, "Well, I have one question for you, and if you can answer it, you can stay." He says, "All right, what's the question?" He says, "Well, there's a goose in a bottle. How do you get the goose out of the bottle?" So the guy walks into the woods and he comes back the next day and he goes, "Well, can I expand the mouth of the bottle and get the goose out?" He says, "No." He says, "Well, maybe I can kill the goose and get him out." "No, can't kill the goose." So he goes back in the forest and he comes back the next day. He goes, "What if the goose lays an egg and we get the egg out of the bottle?" He says, "Nope." So he goes back in the woods. He comes back the third day. He goes, "Look, I give up. I guess I can't study with you. I'll have to go back home. But would you tell me how to get the goose out of the bottle?" And the master says, "You want the goose out of the bottle? Okay, the goose is out of the bottle." There was no goose. There was no bottle. The whole thing was just.
That would do it.
The mind is so dissatisfied by that answer that it just goes and sits in the corner and cries. Anyway, talking about Schitt's Creek, I just thought, you know, who would have thought that the answer is you don't get the satisfaction of an answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No.
Crash
No,
the
it's
room.
nice. No, life isn't interested in your satisfying your answer.
Exactly.
Nice. Thanks, Scott.
Sure.
We've got about 5 more minutes. Would anybody else like to ask anything or share anything?
May I ask a question?
Sure, John.
Hi. I made the mistake the first time I asked you a question, Tim, of asking a question that was actually I had in mind other famous people associated with non-dualism, you know, Tony and so on. And you pointed out actually that what I asked you was probably truer of them than of you. So I'm saying that as a sort of preamble, because when you pointed out earlier, you say you try and find your own language so as not to sound like just a mere imitator of the great Tony.
Oh.
And because the thing is there are one or two other people who, you know, I've sort of read their stuff and I think, or listened to them, I think basically this could be a ventriloquist's doll doing Tony Parsons. I mean, and you know, but the feeling I get here is not that at all. I get a strong sense of character.
Yeah.
But I realize that when I use that word character, it seems to be a bit paradoxical. If the idea, I mean, character might be associated with self, but character somehow seems to exist without that sense of self.
Absolutely. Everything.
But I do find, if I'm just allowed to refer to one, I mean, like, say, for example, with Tony and with Jim Newman, I mean, they are very quick to sort of shut down any biographical investigation. Yesterday, I was listening to a really interesting conversation between Jim Newman and a sweet guy called Robert Weitzman.
Saltzman.
A really, really sweet guy.
He is.
And they were trying to find out what they had in common, and I think they had a lot in common. But Robert, he found it difficult to give up the sense of self because he had this strong sense of caring, and he felt that caring had to come from somewhere.
Right.
And you know, I've heard you say, and I get the sense of your caring too. Like in your book, you know, the pictures, the photos, these are people that, well, I won't say you care about, that are cared about, and that know that they're cared about. I'm sure they know they're cared about.
The strange thing, I know it's paradoxical, but I'm quite happy to say I care about them.
Well, I mean, I have to say that today, I've really, really enjoyed so much what you've been saying now. It's been really, really interesting and moving. But I particularly appreciated that you were not sort of shifting into non-dual textbook language mode,
No.
but you were often using the subject pronoun.
Yeah. Well, I do.
Oh, I know, and that's why I don't look forward to this trap of making comparisons. But I in a way, the comparison, what I notice is I seem to sort of observe quite different characteristics in these people, but some of them are saying that there is no one there. So how do you explain this apparent difference?
Yeah.
If there is no one there.
Oh, well, it's for me, it's just, it doesn't need any explanation, John. It doesn't feel like it requires any explanation. It's just like saying, you know, why do dogs bark differently, or why are clouds different shapes? I don't know. It's as immaterial as that. So human beings have different characteristics. And so they sound differently, they speak differently, they act differently, they react differently, they respond differently. They have different preferences, they like different things. Well, that's all completely natural. The only thing that I would say is superimposed on that is the belief and the felt sense that I have those, that they belong to me. So the characteristics, character, or personality, I don't mind using the word personality, which is taboo generally in non-duality, but I don't see it as taboo at all. Personality is just a word that tries to describe how a human, what we know of another human being's behavior, you know, the way they behave and react and respond. And well, that's just how that human being is.
And I mean, the thing is that and in a way, what you were saying before, I mean, the delight that you can take in those differences. I mean, that is what it's all about. I mean, that's where the pleasure of
that's life,
sides. But sometimes, you know, in other messages, that seems to get sort of in the remorseless, self-destroying discourse. That seems to get chucked out. That's a baby that gets chucked out with the bathwater.
Yeah, it can do, I think. Yeah.
And so then those people can sound, actually, you know, they can sound a bit sort of unconcerned, uncaring, when I'm sure they're not. I'm absolutely totally sure they're not. But
well, it's interesting what you said about Robert when he was talking to Jim Newman, and that, you know, he couldn't give up he needed a self in order to care. Well, it might just be obvious that caring, along with anything else, was
Yeah.
never yours and didn't need you at all.
No.
Caring's absolutely natural. Love
Yeah.
is absolutely natural. Anger, hatred, they're all absolutely natural. They've all been they've been hijacked by me and just claimed as mine.
Yeah.
But self isn't required for any of that.
Yeah.
Self isn't required for life at all. There's John doesn't need John.
I know, and one of them knows. Or both of them.
One of them knows. I like that. Yeah. The other one, he's not going to get it.
No.
He won't have it.
No. He
No.
probably want it. Yeah.
No, it's funny, isn't it? How we have this notion of self as what, you know, as a single entity. So, I mean, that's nonsensical. You just you will not find that one. You'll find many. All illusory. And by illusory, I just mean actually, if you just look what they are, who they are, these selves who talk to each other, have endless conversations with each other, and then we'll have the effrontery to call themselves one, oneself, me, complete nonsense. If you look at the substance of any of them, some will be a bit more, you know, more tricky and shifty than others, but they're all absolutely empty.
Yeah.
None of those, what you might call aspects of self. That's what self would call it, because I need to be a unitary being.
Yeah.
You know, which there's, you know, that's completely self-deluded. That is self-deluding self, that it's this one entity. But if you look at any of the aspects, they'll all be empty.
Yeah, it's like sort of, you know, those masks, sort of theatrical masks. You just, or the smiley one, or the sad one, or whatever, the angry one.
And you take, and behind the mask. So self says, I'm behind the mask, but you know, you try and find that I that's actually the substance behind those masks, and you won't find anything.
Yeah, well, one of us agrees with you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for coming, everyone. So I'll send out invites for Thursday. Next Wednesday, I've got Nothing FM, as well as Monday and Thursday. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate it. And if you'd like to give a donation, then by all means do. They're always appreciated.
If anyone has a spare Android, if anyone has a spare Android phone, let Tim know.
That doesn't smell of shit. Yeah, I didn't say that. On the website, I've actually got a weekend of talks booked in Copenhagen from the 1st to the 3rd of October. If you fancy, you know, a post-lockdown trip to Copenhagen for a weekend, then by all means have a look at it. So I'm not organising it. Lovely Annette and Lotta in Copenhagen are organising it. It's a retreat centre in the city. I'm excited. Of course, there is no future. Who gives a shit? I'm still excited. If that appeals, then just have a look at it. It's very reasonable. I'm sure Copenhagen's not reasonable, but I've heard it's not. It can't be more expensive than Oslo. That's all I'm saying. I've been to Oslo. That was outrageous. For an Englishman who, you know, you couldn't, a pizza and a beer, I think I've said it before, pizza and a beer was over 30 quid. I thought I was going to die. But Copenhagen, yeah, in October. So that's on the events page, or the link to Annette's. She'll give you all the details. So thanks again for coming. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Tim, thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Tim. See ya. Bye. Thanks.